and we are still proceeding on that one. So we had gone through, sorry, I just need to silence this phone. We had gone through the key stages in the development process, that the initial planning stage of the project, which is your feasibility, which is what we are doing. And sometimes it's just at negotiation stage, or you're just talking to the developer. They haven't even acquired the land yet, but you have identified the land and you're looking at it and you're thinking, how can we acquire it? I did say I will share a calculation for residual land value. I will just add it onto the Excel and share it with you guys so that you know if the land, how much the land could be sold for. And then stage 3 would be developing the land. And I did mention that developing would mean bringing services to the land, okay, depending on what you are building. So if it's a township establishment, you would have to make provision for streets, roads, water infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, electricity, telecommunication lines. Are you bringing, is this very well advertised Wi-Fi provider? Okay, I forget, but who are you bringing for your Wi-Fi supply? Is it going to be Metro Fiber? Is it going to be, whoever it is that you're going to bring? When marketing and leasing of the space. And like I said, these stages do not necessarily have to be consecutive. Some of them can happen simultaneously. Okay, obviously you can't develop the land before you acquire it, but you could start with the construction while you're developing as well. So you develop it and you could do it in phases. There are just many ways to do it. We spoke about the types of feasibility, socioeconomic feasibility, physical and legal feasibility, market feasibility, and we are now focusing on the financial feasibility, right? And at the heart of the financial feasibility, the idea is, or what the developer wants to know, or the investor is, will I be able to make money from this? Will it pay to put money into this thing? So the same way your parents have decided to invest in your education, or whoever is paying for your studies, that's an investment with the hope that in the end it will pay. So when I went to varsity, government paid for me with the condition that once I've graduated, I would work for them. So again, it's those conditions. In your parents' case, it's probably, get a job and take care of yourself, get out of our pockets. So with development, will it pay? Will I make money out of it if I invest money into it? So it could be the developer may want a quick profit, and a quick construction to take over. Professional fees want to earn fees. The leasing and the selling agent wants to make his commission. So with all of that, these are the commission, the fees, the cost. These are costs to the investor, and he wants to know what his yield will be. And this is why you would do a financial feasibility. So what you do is accept, like, what's the lowest thing to buy a building. It was put on the market for 6 million, but for the business 4 years, and it's been vacant. So obviously certain things have it has aged, it hasn't been maintained. So we were thinking, okay, maybe 45, the last offer that had been made was about 47, and excluding that. And yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure if I'm the only one who keeps losing you. I'm not sure if it's your line or my line. I just wanted to confirm that.
Let's just hear from the rest of the class. I don't. Is it?
Also
I'm
can't
not
hear
getting.
you.
Okay, let me just check my. Okay, my internet is fine. Let's just see. I'm gonna try and connect on headphones, usually, which is what I do. Okay. Good. Please tell me if you can hear me now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Your silence says you can't hear me.
Ma'am, we can actually hear you now.
Oh, okay. Is it better now? Okay. All right.
Yes, it sounds better now.
Okay, my sounding closer. Okay, so I usually use the headphones and the mic. So today I was just not using them because I've been in meetings all day with headphones and the mic. My ears are tired. So sorry. But let's go back to the mic. Anyways, that look, you've been on the 7 million, but the fund refused with the money, so you couldn't sell it. Give it to us for 45 million, and let's see what the developer says. And then we will pay the VAT and all of that, and you just walk away with a 45 million clean. So this is something you can do. So when you're thinking feasibility, those are the sort of things you are looking at to say, okay, can things be negotiated? Some to escalate the development cost as well. And I don't know why it's don't even do that. What should be marketing cost, all of that. You have to take all the costs into consideration. So once you have the building cost, it would be current to say, if I were to build this today, this is how much it's going to cost me. And then you look at your program, by when do you intend to build it? And then you work on your escalation, you escalate it. How much it will cost out to 10, and so you escalate it with your pre-contract escalation. So the University of Stellenbosch Department of Statistics issues indices, BER, Bureau of Economic Research. So we use those indices for projection. The indices that you get from Stats SA are current, like what's happening. So they come in a month later to tell you what the indices are looking like, whereas Bureau of Economic Research provide projections. So they say, we think by this time next year, this is how much it will cost, or prices would have gone up or gone down by this much. So we use those indices. I don't know, for the people who did third year last year, I don't know if you touched on them. It's part of the third year syllabus. So the cost to tender stage, where we accept an offer and say we will do it. So there's a way to escalate up to tender, and then you have to escalate it from tender. So from when we hand over the site to when construction is completed, because remember, time of, with time, the cost of things increase. So you do the escalation as well for the construction period to say, okay, fine, if it's going to cost me 9 million now, and I only intend to receive offers by next year, March, that means that 9 million by next year, March standards, will be maybe 9.8 million. Okay, fine. And then construction starts in April to finish April of the following year, which is your 2028. So by then, how much would I have spent? Because the costs are not standing still, they're going up. And so you work out, and that is the total cost for construction or for building. Then you look at the fees, you look at, so your total capital outlay. So you look at professional fees, specialist fees, and then you look at your developmental cost, like I said, your financing cost, because when you go to the bank and you say, I need 11 million, you need to tell them how you came to 11 million to say this is what will cost you. And those calculations are what backs your application. Okay, and then also you can work out the replacement value of the property for insurance purposes. Um, and then you do an economic viability analysis. So you look at the estimate, how much money you're going to put your capital outlay, total capital outlay, and then you work out, okay, fine, if I'm going to be renting this building, so let's say you intend to keep it for 10 years, if I'm going to rent it at so much per month, how much will I make? That sort of thing. So you can look at a letting scheme, a marginal return. So sometimes you develop it so that you sell them off. Again, you need to establish how much can I sell a unit for in order for me to make profit. So you can do, so I've spoken about residual lend value. I will share an example. So this is, you can, part of the financial feasibility could be working out how much you should pay for a piece of land in that area, okay, or how much for your project to be profitable. This is the limit to what you can spend on land. So that's what you need to establish, or you're trying to establish with your residual land value. And then you work out what rental to be obtained to achieve a required yield. If you're going to build for 12 million and per year, you're only going to make 100,000 rand in rental, after all expenses are paid, that doesn't make sense. After how long will you recover your 10, 12 million? You know, and then your optimum contract period. So in order for you to start making money, in order for you to capitalize on this development, how quickly or how short should the contract period be? You know, and then the cost, at what cost? So you need to establish what is my maximum before this thing or this project, the entire scheme becomes unviable. Okay, so you estimate total capital outlay, which is all the money you're going to spend, including commission fees for the leasing agent, marketing agent, your costs of financing. So remember, when you borrow 10 million from the bank, they're going to charge you interest. So you have to factor that in, that you're going to pay the loan with interest. And after all of that has been paid, how much money are you going to be left with for yourself? That's what you look for in terms of the profitability. And you do a cash flow projection to see at what point, after you're done with the project, let's say you intend to keep it for 10 years, at what point will you start making profit? So, the first few years you're still paying off the debt, but by when would you have settled the debt and now the money starts coming to you? Obviously, if you realize that in terms of your cash projections, income projections, you're only going to settle by year 9, keeping the property for 10 years is not ideal, because then you spend most of that time paying off the debt. You may sell it and say, okay, let me see how much when I sell it, all of that, how much it will sell for. So there's a lot of intelligent guesses going around here, because you're thinking, if I sell it in the next 5 years, you don't know what the economy will be like. You don't know what would be happening in that time. So it's a lot of predicting. So somebody needs to mute.
I think that as women, we need to stop.
Hi, ma'am. I think you're mute.
No. I have muted because I was muting you. Well, somebody muted me when I muted you, because now I was hearing, I don't know what meeting you were attending, but there was feedback from your side. So I was not saying anything when I was still mute. I just wanted to check that I'm not hearing any feedback at all. But thank you.
Okay, so this would be your capital cost. The cost of land, your construction cost with escalation, professional fees, finance cost, marketing cost, other costs. So like I say, your other cost would be your development cost. And also once you keep the building, well, this would not be the capital, but once you are keeping the building, the payments you'd be making to the municipality, right? So in those 10 years, there's costs, right? So you can read through like the market value of the land, how much is it? You know, the transfer cost as well. If the land doesn't already belong to you, it belongs to somebody else, it has to be transferred. And then building cost and escalations, we've spoken about this. So at feasibility stage, you generally do a square meter estimate. You use the area method. You do an order of magnitude estimate where you're working out 132,000 square meter retail center at 11,500 per square meter. This is how much it will cost. So that's at a very basic level of estimation. Or you can do an elemental estimate if you have a little bit of detail. When you have more detail, then you do like your bill of quantities broken down. I am not a big fan of the elemental estimate. I think if you can do an elemental estimate, then you're ready to do a bill of quantities. You pretty much have enough information. Okay. So when we do the example, it will be on the square meter rate. Then you look at your pre-tender and post-tender escalation or pre-contract and contract escalation. Professional fees and disbursements. So professional fees, you know what professional fees are. It's your fees for your architects, engineers, and all of that. And then you may have a traffic impact study that needs to be done, and then you have to get a traffic engineer to assist with that. That would be under your disbursements because these people do not form part of the formal professional team. They just come do what they need to do, get their money and leave. You may need a geotech study done. You may need an environmental impact study done. You may need a wetland study, all of those things. So that would fall under whatever money you use for disbursements, and then your printing, traveling, whatever fees that are not part of the gazette. So if you are going to have your, what are the other engineers, acoustic engineers, landscape architects, interior designers, those people, generally you don't find them in the fee scales. There is a guideline, but you don't pay them as you would pay the architect. So that is the fees, the cost you look at. Then you look at your mortgage registration cost, your financing cost, all right? Whatever, if you're asking for 10 million, what the bank charges, right? The registering of the bond by the attorneys, there's a money to be paid there. So even when they register the property in your name, again, there's fees to pay. So you'll be paying lawyers quite a bit. And then the cost of that capital and the interest you will be paying. So even when the property has not started making money yet, remember you've already taken the loan because now you start building. So then you need to start paying back during that time. Okay. And then you have your marketing costs. I will not go too much into this. This is marketing and promotion of the facility itself so that people can know about it and rent it. Then you have your leasing commissions, so your state agents and all those people who will be assisting you with tenanting the building. Then you have your sundry legal sundry costs. So it could be legal fees that would be paid in respect of agreement. So when you sign an agreement with the leasing agent, with the marketing agent, your plan scrutiny fee, when you submit plans for approval with the city, any municipality, there's a fee that they charge you because now they have to commit people to looking at that. Depending on the size of the plan, they charge and you pay. So this could go under your disbursements as well. Tenant coordination fee. So this sometimes happens where tenants have to liaise, consultants have to liaise with tenants regarding their fit out requirements. You know, so one tenant could want their space fitted out in a particular way and the other. And so when that's extra over the work that the professionals are are doing. So they would have to be paid extra. And then development and promotion, non-recoverable tenant requirements. So sometimes a tenant may ask for something that was not part of the plan, but because you want that space occupied, then you give them what they want. So you say, fine, I'll pay for that, so that you can take up the space. Then you allow design development contingency, which is the contingency that sits with the design team. In case there's something they missed in terms of the design, they can tap into this money. Then you have your construction contingency for any unforeseen expenditure that is necessary. Then you can allow for any other sundry items that may be applicable. So interim income, I don't know what income you, okay, so let's say the site is in an area where it's exposed, so other people want to put their advertising board there. You could be making money from the site then, and then that you would deduct from your capital outlay, because it's money that's coming into you versus money that you're paying out. Then you work out your estimated gross income. So the anticipated income once the development has been taken for leasing purposes. So gross is before you deduct your expenses, okay? Running costs, all right? So there's your operating costs. You'd be paying, so these would be your running costs that you would have to deduct from your gross income. So local authority charges, those rates and taxes, and then what you pay your estate agent for managing the property and collecting rent. They will charge you a fee for that, a monthly fee, because they do this on a monthly basis. Then there's the cleaning and maintenance of the premises. And then the sinking fund would be going towards the loan that you took, and then any assurances that you have, any other costs. So whatever income you're making, you deduct those costs, and then you would have your net income. Okay, so you can read through this and the difference between a net lease and a triple net lease. So a net lease is where the tenant undertakes to pay for certain operating costs. So maybe cleaning is up to them. Triple net, they take over all the running costs. Okay, so it all depends on them. Under a normal lease, the landlord would pay. So you can read through that. And then in terms of your cash flow analysis, you do the construction cash flow. So when you do your, I think the quantities are, oh, you are a quantity surveying student. So you've been told about the SCAV when you look at the cash flow analysis during construction. So what it does is you start somewhere at the bottom. So you pay for site establishment and maybe excavations at the very beginning. And then as work progresses, they do the high value works, and then the cost increases, so that it forms like the top part, you're going up in an S, and then you get to the top where it starts, the expenditure starts tapering down again. So it forms that S curve. I don't know if it's ever been explained to you, and I don't have it in front of me now, but that would be your cash flow. And part of the reason escalation during construction is different to escalation before construction, so during the tender stage, is because during construction, if you're going to spend 10 million on construction, chances are you're not going to spend 10 million on the first day when you hand over site. You're going to spend it over time. So the increase in cost, it increases based on what you spend. So let's say in the first month you pay 2 million. The escalation on that 2 million is far less than the escalation you'll be paying in the last amount that you pay the contractor at the end of the project, because more time has lapsed, hence that SCAV. And then you have your income and expenditure cash flow, where you detail the income and then you detail the expenditure, or estimate it, because at this point you're doing an estimation of what could be. So then you look at also your income tax, because SARS will want their share of the money you are making. As soon as there's income, SARS wants a bit of it. So generally you do a 5-year projection on the effects of income tax. And then you look at whatever it is, whatever rebates that SARS gives you. So any deductions, any allowances. So for instance, in early to mid 2000, the city of Joburg, I don't know about other cities, they had areas that were called urban development zones. So they were convincing cities. So this is not in terms of income tax, but more with your rates and taxes. In an attempt to convince business to stay in the CBD, they said to them, we're going to maintain this zone and we will charge you less rates and taxes for your building if you commit to staying here for 5 years and all of that. So this is how you ended up having ABSA staying in Troyville, Standard Bank staying in Marshalltown at Simmons, and then FNB staying at the bottom there next to Bree Bank City. So that they made it sort of attractive to try and prevent or put a stop to the deterioration of the CBD. So they will offer a tax incentive in such areas that are called urban development zones. So also from your income tax and all of that, the taxpayer can claim a deduction if those requirements are complied with. And you can show that I'm in this place, so the money I'm making and this is how it's benefiting the country, and so you get a rebate. So again, this is not a tax class, but there are rules and regulations which determine what you can claim from the taxman and what your tax incentives will be. So it's important that at that feasibility stage, you find out if there's any benefits or any tax rebates. And then that will also inform how you treat purchases from developers, amounts that can be deducted, how you deal with the cost for improvement of buildings, also what happens when you build on land owned by third parties. So I told you about the project where we want to buy a building, right? Well, we're just assisting a company. This is a non-profit organization that wants to buy, and the seller is VAT registered, so they're going to have to pay VAT. And one of the business guys was advising that they can open another company or a trust or something and buy the property under the trust so that they don't have to pay VAT and stuff like that. So those are things you would have to look at, and then look at whether it makes sense to do that, if it's not going to be an admin nightmare, if it's not going to be a problem in the future. Then we look at the measures of return. The whole idea with the development that we're busy with, we're not doing social impact, is to maximize yield, beat inflation, and so we're not talking about public service. So once you've done your calculations and you've shown the developer or the investor what the yield is, they can decide to proceed with the development or say, no, my money is better off in the bank, or decide, you know what, we need to redefine the parameters, change certain things and see. So there's a huge site in Modderfontein. I'm just trying to think what the off-ramp is called. So if you take the N3 Pretoria, so I live in the south of Joburg, so now I'm thinking if you take the past Alexandra, there's Marlborough. So if you cross Marlborough onto the other side and you just drive down that road, there's a huge piece of land that is vacant. The Gautrain passes through there as it comes from the airport, and then it stops in Marlborough, and then it goes to Sandton. So that piece of land, there was a developer who wanted to develop a township there. And then because he was saying he could sell houses to people who don't want to live in Alex, but can't really afford Sandton type of thing. So they're somewhere in between. They can't live in your Bryanston. And because the Gautrain passes there, what they were proposing to the Gautrain was we could have a station here so that people can just live here, go work in Sandton, and they take the Gautrain very close from their houses, get off in Sandton, walk to the office, or maybe they work in Midrand or in Pretoria or Hatfield type of thing. We spent quite a number of years. It was a huge development. Some parts were for commercial development, some parts it was financed by another government from another country, a foreign government. They were happy to finance it. But when we did our feasibility and what was required, it was going to take far too long to make money from that project. And they decided rather wait it out. So at the time, they had not bought the land. They had negotiated. I think the land belongs to the city of Joburg. So it was okay if we take the land and this is what we do. And yeah, we did many iterations of that study, and somehow we just couldn't get it to be profitable soon enough for the investor to recover their money. It was a huge development, and a lot happened, and things just didn't go the way they had planned. Maybe if the economy had not tanked, things would have been fine. But they ended up abandoning. It hasn't happened. I don't know, because I'm no longer a private practice. I don't know if they've given up on it completely or they're just waiting it out for the economy to recover. Okay, so you look at how financial yield is measured. So you can have the investment value, which is a method that compares the investment cost of each project with its value, like how much you can sell it for, how much it cost you, how much you can sell it for. And if you use that method, you can only accept the project if the investment value is equal or greater than the investment cost. So if I can recover my money plus profit, that's even better. Then you have your return on investment, which is what we use here. So this is the actual income in each year divided by the capital outlay. So like, for instance, if we spend 10 million and then we say, okay, fine, how much is your return per year? So in the first year, maybe you get 1 million. And then it would give you a percentage to say, okay, fine, your return would be in the first year this much of your initial income. So that, and then your average return period is, when I was at varsity, we were working at 10 years, it's now 20, depending on the economy. Sometimes the economy is doing great, so it can be a much shorter period. But right now, we're looking at 20 years, okay? You've seen how cell phone contracts have moved from 24 months to 36 months. Cars, it used to be like 48 to 52 months. Now you can buy a car over 72 months. It's like paying off a car over 5 years. So because things have become more expensive and affordability in terms of what people can afford has not improved. So now retailers have found a way to say, okay, fine, buy it, but then we give you a longer period to pay us. But that means they also make a bit more interest out of you. The longer they have to wait, the more interest they make. Then you have your internal rate of return, which is the interest rate that will make your net present value 0. Okay, so I'm gonna go on to the Excel example to show you. Just wanna see if I can share it. Okay, no. Please tell me if you can see the Excel with the many tabs. So there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tabs. 6. One is red.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, it's perfectly fine. So it's a simplified example that we do for third years and I think you will understand it better. So here's where it comes from. So if you see example 1A, a property investment is expected to produce after-tax cash flows that are shown here. So it's an unequal series. So if you can see in the first year, the property investment will provide 20,000. In the second year, it gives 20,400. Third year, 30,000. Fourth year, 20,600. I do hope you still can see. And then in the fifth year, 20,200. And then in the last year, which is the sixth year, it produces 10,800, right? So it's not like you're making 500,000 every year. So it's giving you different. And then the present value factor is 12%. So if you click here, you'll see there's that present value formula, which I do hope you know. But what we're saying is we are standing at year 0, right? And we're saying at the end of year 1, we will make 20,000. How much is 20,000 in today's terms, right? So if your discount rate is 12%, 20,000 is equivalent to 17,000 today. So if you had 17,857 and you put it in a bank for a year and it was to grow at 12%, it would give you the 20,000. So now you're discounting to how much is it in today's terms. So in year 2, and we're working at the end of year 2, not at the beginning. We're saying at the end of year 2, remember we're still standing at year 0. At the end of year 2, so this is future income. You would have gotten 20,400. Okay, how much is that 20,000 in today's terms? Okay, so the same way I could say a loaf of bread now, I think I bought it for 17 Rand 50. How much do you think a loaf of bread will be in a year's time? So now what we're doing is, okay, in a year's time, a loaf of bread will be 25 Rand. How much should a loaf of bread be today if we are discounting by 12%? So that is what we're doing here. And you get these discounted values, and we're saying in today's terms, your total or your net present value is 85,498. So if you're gonna invest 100,000, so your total capital outlay is 100,000. And when you look at your projected income, it's equivalent to 85. That means you're over investing. Okay. So this total would be your net present value. I do hope it makes a bit of sense. So as a student, I think it took me 3 years to understand what a net present value is. Like those people were just talking and I was not getting it, but you can also Google it. So your net present value would measure the difference between the present value of cash inflows versus your outflows. So this that I've just shown you, let me go back to it. The 85,000 would be your present value. And then from it, then you deduct however much you spend. So you spend 100,000 in developing these buildings. So you'll say 85,000 minus 100, it's a negative. That means that investment is not worth going into. This is another example where you determine your present value, right? And then you're going to compare it with how much you spent. So your total capital outlay, and then it will give you your net present value. So this is future income, and you compare your future income. And like I say, you discount it to today's rate, because we say in the first year, your rental will be 600,000. Then rental increases by 10% every year. So we assume that you have those tenants, the number of tenants is the same. Or maybe you are renting it to one tenant, so he intends to stay for 10 years. And you say, okay, fine, in the first year, you give me 600,000, but every year the rental will increase. So this is what happened here. And then it becomes 660, 726. It keeps going up. And then after 10 years, so you work out, okay, how much is in year 0, which is where we are? How much is 600,000 worth? We're working on 11.5%, right? So again, what determines this? That's you do a bit of research. So this would be like what when we talk internal rate of return. So what determines this? So you will find out from other businesses what is the rate of return, what is in this area, what is the discount rate, but you also have those property, I don't want to say journals, but there's published work on property to say this is the discount rate that we're working on. Sometimes it's 9.5, 7.5, and that means you have, like, it determines your time, how long or how quickly you can make your money. So if you invest 8 million and after 10 years, the money you would have made is equivalent to 5 million. Because if you add this, it's not 5 million, but this is future income. It's not money you have now. And what we're saying is, in today's terms, how much are these? So if it's 600,000 at the end of 2028 or 2027, how much is it worth now? Because it's not 600,000. So you've done time value of money and you understand that you can do more with 100 rand today than what you'll be able to do with it next year around the same time. So I hope that makes sense. So if you think about it, I don't know if you guys buy chippies, but when I was growing up, chippies used to be 10 cents. So if I had a 1 rand growing up, then say when I was 6, 7, I could have bought 10 chippies. So the value of that 1 rand was more than. Now with 1 rand, I can only buy 2 chippies because now they're selling them for 50 cents each. So that's what I mean to say your 100 rand is worth more today in terms of what you can buy, more than what it will be worth in the future. So this is why when you invest, you want that money to have interest, because if it stays the same, then it's eroding in value. If you think about how much a loaf of bread was when you were in high school versus how much it is now, you realize 20 rand could do a lot more for you back then, way more than it can do now. So this is why we work out, okay, 600,000, how much is it worth in today's terms? 660, how much is it? So you can see the period differs, okay? So we are saying if your discount rate is 11.5%, if this is the discount rate, your 1.4 million is in today's terms is worth 476,000. Okay, so that's your present value. Then we go on to net present value, which is what I was talking about. So if we look at that first calculation in year 0, there you are. You're spending 97,175. Maybe you're revamping these facilities to rent it out, and this is the income you're going to make, right? And then after the 6th year, you sell it. So your income here in the last year may increase because you are now selling the property. So now you add this and then you say less your total capital outlay, which is this portion here. I hope you guys can still see as I switch between screens. You can see, right? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So if you add this, less that, it gives you 3,049 and 36 cents. So that if it's 0, it means you will break even. Like after that 6 years, you would have gotten to break even. So there is some hope. I mean, if it's positive, it means you will make more money. So your income versus your expenditure, the difference is 3,000. So this is the plus, this is your, I want to say, yeah, your profit from this. So it's like, okay, maybe it's worth pursuing. Or you could look at it and say that's such a small profit at all. This is why we say we look at your profit and then think, well, this is not quite the profit. I don't know what the word is I should use, but yeah, we look at the return. Okay, this is your return. You look at your return and you compare it with if you were to put this money in an investment vehicle somewhere instead of building, how much would it be? You know, so, and then if this makes more sense, then you put it in there. So So we used 12%. Then we looked at it if your discount value was 14%, your discount rate. And you see at 14%, it's not profitable. It gives you don't get a return. You actually lose money. Okay. So that is what your net present value is. Your net present value is the sum of your discounted future income minus your total capital outlay. So this is future income. So because the future income is there, but we discount it to today's value, that's where it is. And then we say, okay, in today's terms, this is how much you will be making versus how much you are spending. Is it worth looking into or not? Okay. Then we talk about your internal rate of return. So your internal rate of return estimates the profitability as a percentage of your building. So when you're looking for an internal rate of return, you're looking for a value that will make your net present value 0. So you're looking for that percentage. Remember here, we were saying at 14%, we're going to make a loss. However, at 12%, we will make a profit. So we want to know at what percentage will we get 0 here? At what percentage will your income be equals to your expenditure, or at least your total capital outlay? And that is what your internal rate of return is. Generally, to calculate internal rate of return, you use a financial calculator, or you input your formulas into Excel, because otherwise it's a trial and error. So here, with this investment that has an unequal series of income, we already know that 12 will give us a profit and 14 will make a loss. So now we have to work between 12 and 14. So it could be 13, it could be 12.9, it could. So now you start working one by one, like it's a trial and error, because you know at least the range is in between, because we want to know at what discount rate would we break even. And that is what your internal rate of return is. And for that investment where you put 97,000, we found that it is 13%. So 13.0103%. Then here, your net present value will be equal to 0, and that's your break even point. Okay. Let me see. This is another example where I was doing the same thing. So what I'll do is I will share this with you so that you can go through it, and it makes you, or it brings you closer to understanding net present value and internal rate of return, because those are the things we're going to use to determine whether your feasibility study is profitable or not. So I will share this in case you want to look at it. I'll share it with everything, but these were other calculations that I was doing for explaining certain things to the third years. So I thought this would make the example easier. It breaks it down as opposed to what I'm going to do with you, where everything is in a table. So this like takes you step by step, which is third year work. So I do not see any hands. I do not hear any questions with regards to that. So I think we sort of understand, or at least you have an idea of what internal rate of return and net present value is. Okay. We spoke about the initial return method, which is we look at your first year of income. So generally, let's say we're saying if you make 10% of what you spent in the first year, then it's worth looking at. So that could be your determiner or your determining factor. Okay. So when you do your feasibility study, you can decide, are you going to look at the investment value method, return on investment method, internal rate of return, or initial return? Then payback method. So when you look at the payback method, you are checking, you look at the income to say, okay, fine, how long, based on this income, your net income versus how much you spend, how long is it going to take for you to repay the debt, so it's that zero value, your internal rate of return. So if you've put in 97,000 into this, after how many years would you have paid back that 97,000? And when you do this, because it's just flatlined, it doesn't take time value of money into account. It doesn't take into account the fact that 97,000 now will be what you can do with 97,000 now is far less than what you can do with it in the future. So if you can buy, I'll make an example. When I was in high school, like very beautiful houses were going for 200,000. Right now, you can't even get a site for 200,000. So if I had 200,000 when I was in high school, I could have bought myself a very nice house. But now you find that the same properties are now going for 2 million. So had I bought it then, I would have bought it for 200,000. But now, if I didn't buy then, I should have saved that 200,000 to ensure that by the time I want to buy, it is growing at the same rate as the value of that property. Okay, so that's time value of money. Then I've explained what net present value is. Then you have your sensitivity analysis. So your sensitivity analysis is a method where you look at variables. So what is best case scenario? And best case scenario is what if your entire building is taken up, there's tenants in the first year and they stay there for the next 7 years. Worst case scenario is, okay, fine. What if in the first year you don't have tenants and then you only start getting tenants in the second year? What if, so you do all these different scenarios to work out what could happen. And when you present your feasibility, you show that, okay, this is all things considered, this is how much we think you can make from this. Worst case scenario, this is how long it will take you to make your money. Best case scenario, and then the investor makes their decision based on that. You can read through residual land value. I will share an example. So then we look at where you want to optimize the financial return. So sometimes the first place to start is you reduce your total capital outlay. How you do this is you value engineer your designs. So for instance, you look at your specifications and you say, maybe we don't need to use such a high spec. Maybe we don't need to use this fancy clear view fencing. Let's use palisade. Okay, then we save there, the cost will go down. Let's negotiate with the professionals for a 30% discount. Again, your cost goes down. You negotiate with the seller of the land. It's okay, fine. Sell me the land at this much. I'll give you 3% end to the business. Whatever it is, you negotiate, right? So that goes down. When you're negotiating with the bank and they say, oh no, we'll give you the loan at prime plus 2%, and you say, but I've been a client of yours for over 25 years and I've been reliable, give me prime minus. So you work out how to reduce that. So that's the first step, reduce your total capital outlay. How much cheaper can you get the building to be? Then in that way, it helps in that the money you make, you haven't spent too much. Or you look at, I jumped too quickly, decreasing the vacancy factor. So how do you ensure that most of the building is taken up when it's ready? So if you're in the right location where there's huge demand for space and you're offering good quality, compared to the buildings nearby, and maybe there's flexibility and functionality of the proposed development. So you can say, okay, fine, the ground floor will be shops. Second floor will be, so this is a 3-story building that I'm thinking about. The ground floor will be shops, second floor offices, and then third floor we have luxury apartments. So this is used to be quite common in your areas, like on the N and is it N2? Yes, on the Garden Route. So you're nice na Plettenberg Bay, because then you have those people who have money and have retired there, and then you have people who want their offices as well, but you don't have a huge demand of office space. You don't have a huge demand of shops. Like everything is just in moderation. So you're thinking, okay, let me develop a mixed development building so that I can have shops and then offices and then, but obviously when you have shops, it can be your shops that will be doing doof doof music, because people live there and some people are doing running their offices from there. So you look at ways to decrease the vacancy factor so that you can a certain income, more solid income for the duration of that investment. Sometimes you tie people into long leases that are put in place so that and they can't get out. Then, or you take one company that says, I'm going to take the entire building for 15 years. And that's when you're like, I'm short of rent for the next 15 years, you know. Or you find a way to increase your gross income. So maybe some walls are for advertising and you charge advertisers. If you look at a lot of Investec offices, they have that screen where they're showing the rates and all of that. And that's also, it brings in income to have those advertisements going there. If you think about your highways, your M1, your retailers, businesses pay big money to have their billboards on the highway where they can be seen by people. So if your building offers that exposure, you can sort of do that, or you can increase your rentable area. You know, so for instance, if you look at shopping malls, there are those spaces in the walkways or hallways where they will have your pop-up shops or your pop-up something, and those people pay a lot of money to be there for the weekend. So you start working on that. Also, you look at your rental escalations to say, okay, fine, I'll increase my rent by 15% instead of 10. Not sure how many tenants will stay and take that. Sometimes you're like, okay, you'll allow them to occupy the building for free for a certain period. And then you tie them to a lease. You work around different ways to make the property profitable. Another thing, you can decrease operating expenses. So your cleaning costs, you get the lowest quotes. Or you negotiate with those people to say, I'm going to give you a contract for 5 years. Surely you can negotiate your charges, you know, and all of that and give me a discount. Also, I have other buildings that I will give you to use as well, or that I will give to you. So you'll be taking care of my 5 buildings, such things. So you negotiate, and then you increase what you can recover from the tenants. So in terms of what the tenants can pay for, and it's not you. So you have to ensure an optimum capital cost versus maintenance ratio. So your life cycle cost analysis. So say, okay, fine. When I've built this building, I will need to do maintenance for per year maintenance, because maybe you put high spec things and you can only, so let's say your light bulbs you'll only replace after 24 months instead of after 16 months. You know, so that saves you a bit of money. And then you optimize your energy system. So for instance, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that land. They're putting up a roof everywhere because they're going to put solar panels. Their electricity expense is just making it difficult for them to exist as a business. So they've decided, let's use solar. So you can decide to optimize your energy systems, and then your operating costs can be lower. And then you can decide to harness rainwater and use that for your toilets, so that it's separate from your drinking water. Such things, you find ways, okay? Then part of what we've been discussing is doing your risk analysis. Your sensitivity analysis would include doing risk analysis to say, what sort of risks is this development exposed to? What could be exposed to? So you can read about those measures of risk analysis that are available, or that are applicable. So you have people who are very conservative, where they will say, what if I don't make enough cash flow? So the inflows are revised downwards, whereas the outflows are increased. So it's like, okay, that worst case scenario. So a conservative, if we're not making too much money, how would it be like your worst case scenario? So if even at that rate, the return is still higher, then the investor will feel comfortable. To say even if we're being conservative and we're not being too optimistic, still you'll still be making a return. Then you have your risk-adjusted discount rates. When you do your discounted cash flow, which is what we did when we were doing that analysis. And then you have a certainty equivalent approach, where you apply a coefficient to each income or cash flow payment. So this depends on the degree of certainty associated with each income payment. So I'm trying to remember what that portion of statistics is called, but you're looking at the probability of that money being paid, and the coefficient would be between 0 and 1. So it could be 0.01, probability is 0.05, that sort of thing. So there are people whose job is to work out what the coefficient is. So these are your formulas. If you're using return on investment, you would use your net income over capital outlay. So net income for the first year over your total capital outlay. So if we think about that 97,000 Excel example, you would have the 20,000 here, which is your return in the first year, divided by the 97,000. And depending on how much it gives you, and you're like, okay, in the first year, this is how much I'm going to make. And you see here, net income is 5 over 20, 25%. In real life, it doesn't happen like this. Hardly ever. 25% is, there's no way, all right? Or if it's 5.5, like that's, you look at, so this is your anticipated income. And then you look at, so this would be your gross income, and then you say your gross income less your expenditure, so operating expenditure, so your cleaning cost and all of that. We usually express them in terms of a percentage. Sometimes it's like 5%, but you can work it out. Then once you've analyzed and come up with the different types of risk that could be there, you find a way to mitigate the risk. What is your risk absorption ratio? Just how much risk can you take? Okay. And then you have that graphical representation of bringing together the information needed to make alternative investment decisions. So you say, okay, fine, if the risk is higher than what I can absorb, what should I do? Redirect the investment, invest money somewhere, or redesign the building, lower this cost, and then do that. So that would be your decision tree. We've spoken about what your sensitivity analysis is, so you can read through that. Selling schemes, you can also read through that as well, and then you'd have, if you have any questions for me. So this just gives you what a presentation of a feasibility study would look like. Have the cover, the table of contents, but we will go through an example, and then it will assist you even for when you do your assignments. I haven't shared the information about that Bank of Lisbon building because my facilities manager has not sent me all the info, but I will share it. I am still waiting for your group names. I haven't received it. And I've been asking because you said you're already in groups from another course that you are doing. And I've asked that you share your groups. If you don't, I'm going to divide you into groups myself from the list that I download from your class attendance, and you're going to end up with people you don't like or that you don't know and you don't like, and then you now have to introduce yourself to each other. If we were sitting in a physical class, that would be better. Any questions? Okay, in the absence of questions, I am going to stop here.
Sorry, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Evening, are you?
I'm good, thanks, and you?
Good, good. Regarding the groups, I recall you asked the class rep to send you the groups.
Yes, I asked you guys to send the class rep your lists, right? Because I don't know if she has it, and then she sends it to me. And that didn't happen. I think I asked that please just email your group details to me, and then I'll just, because I don't know if you've sent it to her and she hasn't forwarded it to me, or if she has not received it. I suspect she had not received it. So
Okay, because we have sent it. We'll just forward it to you then. Thanks.
Okay. All right. No, thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening. Wishing you a good weekend. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, ma'am.